Good morning, everybody. Today we'll be discussing something a little heavy, close to my heart, and it's what's happening in Gaza. We titled this segment Israel's Final Solution for Palestinians, and I want to pass it over to Senator Black to start us off.
Okay, well, good morning, Morgan. It's really unfortunate. We're getting into the phase where the people of Gaza are being systematically starved. Tremendous issue of starvation. The Israelis have blocked every conceivable entrance, and what they've started doing is the people are desperate. People will literally face gunfire to get a bowl of rice, and so the Israeli army is letting tiny little convoy of a few trucks go forward to take food, and they use it as bait. And when the people, rush to get food, then the Israeli army is waiting and they gun them down. Just this past Sunday, they murdered 93 innocent civilians rushing to get food for themselves and their children, and it's just a merciless technique. It's sort of like setting rat traps, only they're rat traps for human beings. And I understand that in total, the recent number killed using this technique is something like 700. But in any event, it's become a very commonly used thing, and it has gotten the attention of Pope Leo XIV. Now, the popes are very reluctant to get involved in issues of war to any deep extent. And of course, you have this is a brand new pope, not looking for controversy at the outset of his time, and he came out fairly strongly. He condemned the barbarity of the war in Gaza and the indiscriminate use of force, and he said that let's say this act unfortunately adds to the ongoing military attacks against the civilian population and places of worship. Now, he's referring also to the fact that the Israelis have systematically destroyed all of the mosques, all of the places of worship. Population of Gaza is 99% Muslim, 1% Christian, 0% Jewish, and the plan is that the Israeli government will exterminate or drive out all of the population of Gaza and replace it with Jewish settlers, which clearly is an act of very grave international crime under international law. But so having destroyed all of the mosques, there's a lone Catholic church in Gaza, and the Israelis rolled up tanks and targeted the Catholic church. They killed several people there. There were 600 people, mostly children, who have been placed by their parents there to save their lives. And the priest who is the pastor for the Catholic Church was wounded himself. Apparently, he was in regular communication with the former Pope, Pope Francis, and so this was the priest who was injured. I don't know how seriously he was, but in any event, we've seen with the Israelis from the outset, what they have done is they have tried to destroy every support system for human life within Gaza. Gaza is a very small area, very densely packed, one of the most densely packed places on earth. It's in a desert area. And so people, rather than spreading out, they have built vertically. So they have all of these sort of high-rise buildings that support the I think it's 2.9 million people who live there, so over 2 million. And using American supplied 2,000-pound bombs, what they have gone in and done is the Israelis targeted these buildings in a way that would kill all of the occupants. Now, the way they do this, formerly, where there was some consideration for humanitarian concerns, they had what they called a double tap. So what they would do is they would drop a small bomb, not intended to really kill or injure many people. They would drop it, and that would be a warning to the people. You better get out because your building is targeted and it's coming down. So the 2,000-pound bombs, I was at one point in Vietnam War, I was a forward air controller. I dropped thousands of bombs, but only once had access to 2,000-pound bombs. These have an enormous power. A 2,000-pound bomb dropped on hard ground will create a crater the size of a swimming pool, a home swimming pool. And when dropped on a building with a delayed fuse, the bomb will go in, and it will, in many instances, kill everyone who is an occupant of the building. And of course, the buildings are, principally, I mean, probably, I don't know, probably 95%, just strictly civilian. There might be somebody who happens to be a reservist for the government or something, but these are civilian buildings. They're not military buildings. And the photographs of the devastation there, the devastation is worse than you had in Germany before the fall of the country at the very end of the war, when they were just carpet bombing just relentlessly, month after month after month. Because I don't think the Germans had access to that many 2,000-pound bombs like the Israelis have had. So the clear intention was to maximize the destruction of the infrastructure that is vital to supporting human life in the Gaza, and simply making it to where either people leave, which they cannot do, they're prohibited in every direction, or most likely simply to make it unlivable to where the people will die. And that seems to be the official Israeli policy.
Yeah, I think just an important aspect that I always find interesting that some military personnel have made very clear is the tactic of genocide. It's done in phases. So you have the mass killing in the beginning, where you kind of exert your soldiers to do heinous actions, but you can only do that so long before your soldiers go crazy. So you have to implement other tactics: starvation, disease, just the complete destruction of civilian infrastructure, so these individuals can't live day to day. We've heard from doctors who've come back that the sanitation in Gaza is abhorrent. That the actual drinking water that's left, or the water that the people still drink, smells of just sewage. Um, and so I think that that all plays into the aspect of, there's still this debate on if it's genocide or if it's this annihilation or ethnic cleansing of people. And you have the Israeli government explicitly stating such. You have Yoav Gallant, who was the defense minister, go out and say that we're going to shut off all the power, all the water and food. I believe it was just a week after what had happened on October 7th. And then you have Smotrich, which you uh, spoke about that some time ago, where he's made all these statements as well, very radicalized, and just being flagrantly open about how they're going to expel the people of Gaza or contain them in an area, and claim Gaza as Israel.
Yeah, there is this plan that's rather well developed at this point, and the plan is to move 600,000 people to a concentration camp in the very southern part of Gaza, and to cleanse a large portion, ethnically cleanse a large portion, and to move 600,000 people, men, women, children. They'll all be carefully screened so that anybody who could conceivably be a fighter would be screened out. So you'll have nothing but civilians in this, and the civilians will be trapped in a small area where they'll live in tents out in the heat of the desert. There'll be nothing to do, no place to go. It'll be a barbed wire enclosure where the people, other than the tents, will be pretty much exposed to the elements. There will be Israeli prison guards, very much like the Nazi SS guards at Auschwitz, and the Israeli guards will be there. They will control whether they allow any food to come in to those 600,000 people or not. The people will be prisoners. There will be no possibility that they can get out of the concentration camp. The 600,000 will be roughly half of the most famous Nazi concentration camp at Auschwitz. Auschwitz was not a camp; it was an entire region where there was this complex of individual camps and so forth. But at Auschwitz, at least they had regular buildings to protect people from the elements. And here there will be nothing. There will be no buildings. So just simply they'll live in tents in the desert in the heat, and they will be at the mercy of the kindness of Israeli prison guards, which is very much like putting people at the mercy of the Nazi concentration camp guards. So it's a terribly shameful thing. It's a disgrace that this is going on, and it really is so reminiscent of the things that have sort of been the foundation of the moral argument for Israel, which is never again we're going to, now under this mantra, you had European settlers, Jewish European settlers who had never lived in Palestine, and they came and they settled and they forced the indigenous people out, both Christian and Muslim, and they stole all of their farms and all of their homes, which has caused enormous bitterness. And but this this argument that somehow, well, we suffered under the Nazis. They weren't the only ones. There were Russians lost vastly more people. The Poles lost enormous numbers of people. There were lots of people who died. Lots of Germans died in that war under terrible circumstances also. But the idea that should be the moral foundation for the modern state of Israel, and children in all of these Holocaust museums they're indoctrinated to the mantra, never again, never again, that somehow this should never happen to the Jewish people again. Well, that's fine. We all agree with that. But here we have a situation where we have the Jewish state, Israel, which is conducting something very much resembling the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
being
one
done
thing.
very mercilessly.
Yes. It's unbelievable. But I find solace in the fact that you have a lot of the American Jewish youth that are actually espousing that term, never again, not in my name. And they're witnessing what's going on in Gaza, and they understand full well that they want no part of that. That does not ring true to how they were brought up in their faith, and they want no part in the survival of Israel being tied to the destruction of another people.
You
And
make an excellent point. I'm not sure how aware people are, but the what's referred to as the pro-Palestinian movement, in large part, in a very large measure, was organized and staffed by Jewish people. The very first really major demonstrations against what was being done to the Palestinian people were organized, and the marchers were largely Jewish. And this was in Washington, D.C. I received a report about this, and I double checked. I said, "Are you sure that?" I was trying to figure out how this was, but I was told that this was organized by various Jewish groups. And when I checked, I was really gratified to see that there's a major element. I don't know what the breakout would be, but it very easily is 50-50. There may be more than 50% of the Jewish population that are appalled by what's being done over there by Netanyahu. But I think it really is important to recognize that there's a very powerful and very positive movement among the Jewish community to put an end to this. And I think there's a great sensitivity to this theme of never again, that, and they were brought up on that theme, and that somehow we're the good guys, the Jews are the good guys, and the other people are the bad people. And here they're looking and realizing that, wow, this is a very brutal, merciless, cruel approach. Morgan, there is a law of reprisal in international law. If you are attacked and someone does arguably unlawful things, you are able, under international law, to do things that would normally be unlawful in reprisal. But there are certain qualifications, and probably the most important is that what you do has to be proportionate. It can't be disproportionate. And one of the most famous events occurred during the Second World War, when Italy had fallen to the Allies. The government had been overturned, and at this point, the German government, there was a portion of Italy, northern portion, that was very, very Germanic, and so that was sort of annexed by the Germans, and there was a patrol of 33 German troops who were, just making a routine patrol through this area, and the Italian guerrillas in that area staged an ambush, and I'm not sure that they killed everybody in the group, but they killed 33, and this was distressing to the German high command, and a decision was made. There were certain proposals that went up through the chain of command. One was that there would be a bombing of a certain segment of the city of Rome, various things. And then the thing that finally emerged, the bombing Rome, was rejected. But eventually they narrowed it down, and they said, what we will do is we will execute 10 Italians for every one soldier who was killed. And it was a very intensely, it was something that grabbed the attention of the international community, the international legal community. And eventually the outcome of this case, it was dealt with in the aftermath of World War II, looking at war crimes tribunals and so forth. And the decision was that this was a lawful reprisal, and that, killing 10 for one in a very, very carefully carried out method was acceptable. And in 1952, after the war was over, the Italian Supreme Court examined it, and they said this was lawful as a reprisal. And then later, I think in 1999, there was sort of a reaffirmation of that decision. So we know that lawfully you can carry out reprisals, but this was 10 to 1 under the Nazis. And here under Netanyahu, you have at minimum, and this is really a very conservative number, you have at least 48 to 1 people who have been killed by the Israelis. And so I think if there were some way to have an objective tribunal, I think under no circumstances would they say that the reprisal staged by the Netanyahu government in response to the initial attack on Israeli settlements, that it was somehow reasonably proportionate. It's not. It is, in my view, a war crime. The extent and brutality of the attacks, and of course that's very controversial. A lot of people would disagree with that, but it seems to me certainly there is throughout the world the feeling that this is a criminal action. and it's prompted President Emmanuel Macron of France to announce that France will recognize a Palestinian state in September, and they will be the first major Western power to actually recognize a Palestinian state. And you have Prime Minister Keir Starmer of Great Britain referring to the unfolding starvation in Gaza as unspeakable and indefensible. And so it's, I think it is a good sign that the nations of the world, with the exception right now of the United States, are tending to view the methods being used as being war crimes, and they're reacting and being very vocal that it is wrong to make the children of Palestine just pay for whatever was done a couple of years ago by a handful of militants, and that it is wrong to enforce mass starvation on a large number of people. And that's kind of where we stand right now with it.
Yes, I think you made a very important point about this shift. You have France, that would be the first Western aligned country to state they will recognize the state of Palestine. But you also have the global majority in the South that are standing up, and they're declaring they've had enough. The 16th of July, you had 30 countries meet under this delegation called the Hague Group in Bogota, Colombia. And they were saying that they've had enough with Israel in this rules-based order is what they were declaring that has just defiled international law. And so they are joining together, creating a pact that they will no longer facilitate the arms shipments. They will block any arms shipments, boats that are needing to dock at their port, and other measures. So I find that to be a glimmer of hope that you see this rising majority of nations that were, since I would say World War II, have been kind of trampled on, seen as less than. Their words and kind of their stance on the world stage has been minimal at best, are reclaiming their independence and standing up against what is happening with Israel and Gaza, and kind of taking the stance against colonialism that has plagued a lot of their nations. And we have to remember the American spirit. We were against that as well, and somehow we've done this 180 where we've adopted this stance to allow Israel to do what they're doing and annexing the West Bank and annexing Gaza, really rejecting our founding measures of us going against a colonial power, Britain, and trying to be the moral compass of the world, and bring forth this constitution of every man is created equal. And what is your take on all of this?
Yeah, I think it's great that I think we do see people rising up and taking a stand, and it does apply pressure. The thing that really has propelled this is that there are financial powers that support the Israeli actions, very, very wealthy mega billionaires. And these are the same people who provide enormous funding to both the Republicans and the Democrats. And they have enormous leverage with with both parties, because the parties kind of have to do what will get them enough funds to where they can win re-election or
Mm.
whatever. And so uh, what I really wish is that some of these very powerful uh, billionaires uh, they themselves would find it in their hearts to say, you know, I think maybe we need to pick up the phone, give a call to Netanyahu, tell him, let's back off. This starvation, killing children, this is a little bit too much. This idea of, you throw out a few truckloads of food, and when thousands of people come running with carrying bowls and bottles to get some bit of food, you have people stationed to gun them down. This is that I don't remember the Nazis doing this, but I suppose there were things certainly just as bad. But um, this this is just too much, and I would hope, these are very powerful people. Many of them have global enterprises that have just vast, personal wealth and enormous influence within the halls of government. And I would just hope that at least with a few of those, that they would have some feeling of discomfort with the idea of having children, emaciated children, dying on a daily basis of simply starvation, not dying because of disease or wounds. There are certainly enough of those, but dying of just emaciation and uh, no food. And it's hard for me to believe that even the powerful owners of these vast enterprises don't have some remnant of humanity in them to say, maybe starving children is going a little bit too far. Maybe it's time to say, okay, Israel has certainly trounced the people of Gaza, has certainly had their revenge. Uh, they've by now they should have gotten it out of their system. But it's ironic. In the middle of all of this huge war against the Palestinians in Gaza, there is this West Bank population. The West Bank is an occupied portion that is owned by Israel. It's occupied by Palestinians in large measure, Christians, Muslims, and while the world is distracted by the slaughter of people in Gaza, the Jewish settlers, very greedy, seizing opportunities to make fortunes, have set upon the helpless, unarmed people in the occupied West Bank. And they have, just recently, there was a fellow, an American from Tampa, Florida, visiting his family, and the Israeli settlers, the Jewish settlers, burst into his house, and I guess he tried to push them back, and they beat him to death. He was unarmed. He wasn't even outside. He was in his parents' home, and they just took him and beat him to death. And I know one of the famous acts within the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany it's called Kristallnacht, which is Crystal Night. It translates, and the word crystal comes from sort of the breaking of Jewish store windows.
Yeah, the
And
Night of Broken Glass, I think that's the American term
yeah,
that I was, yeah.
yeah. And anyway, it was a very similar type of thing. It wasn't just some mass slaughter of people. It was smashing, trying to destroy the Jewish business section, and just beating up people, and some people were killed in that. And this is similar to this fellow in Tampa, and this has been going on for years, where the Netanyahu is very close to the extremist settlers, and they beat people to death, they gun people down, they burn the homes of people, and there's almost never an investigation, almost never a prosecution. It doesn't matter whether they murder or what they do. They have free reign, and they have this helpless population of Palestinians, defenseless. And here, just last night, there was a report that came out that the settlers in the West Bank have disconnected the water supply that fed 30 Palestinian villages, and they diverted all of that water. And so now these are peaceful people living under occupation, under the Jewish government, and their water is being taken away. For what? Because they're Palestinians, they're not Jewish. And so you simply steal their water. It's troubling. In that area, they have these ancient olive trees. And the trees that are there, this is an arid area. It's not easy to grow things. And the olive trees that they use today are the same trees that fed Jesus Christ when he walked this land. And the settlers have gone in, and they have cut around the trunks of these trees that have lived for hundreds of years, providing food for the people. And just heartless people. They just destroy. They have such a venom and hatred for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And now here they are taking over water. And water in a desert, in an arid area like that, is a precious commodity. If you don't have water, you don't have life. They've been sending the Israelis have sent their cattle to go and graze on the food crops of the Palestinians of the West Bank, and also to feed on their pasture lands where their own cattle can't find food. And the whole idea is you make life for these people so unbearable that eventually they just give up and die.
Mm-hmm.
There was a thriving Christian population before 1948, when the emigration came from Europe to take over Palestine. I don't know, there may have been 20% Christians. There were a lot of Christians.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of Christians, Jews, a lot of Muslims. Muslims were the highest population, but very substantial population of Christian. It's now less than 1%. How did this happen? Aren't we Judeo-Christian civilization? Well, the fact is that the Christians there are just as unwelcome as the Muslims, and they've been purged. And it's a policy of the Israeli government to get all these big American pastors to go over there and to see all of the Holy Land, and they get this very scripted runaround by the government. but meanwhile, something is going on that's very pernicious, and the Christians have just been systematically purged from the Holy Land, and uh, I see a time where there will not be a Christian in all of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ironic that they, through this propaganda technique, the government has given American Christians the idea that somehow they are the friends of the Christians. They are not at all the friends of the Christians. They are as antagonistic towards them as they are towards the indigenous Palestinian Muslims.
Yeah. It reminded me of uh, this common man that we both know, former CIA analyst Ray McGovern. He told me a story one time where he was driving past a Palestinian village where this woman was drinking from this little spigot of water. It looked very dry, and they were living in tents. He goes at the top of a hill to meet a rabbi, where this rabbi has fountains and lush greenery, and he said he was just so disheartened to see the two worlds that were, living under the same land, the Holy Land. And he even brings it up to the rabbi and then quotes part of the Torah that talks about, like, you shall not be taking these, necessities of life while others are as pardon me, I am paraphrasing because I don't know the Torah, but he tells the story far better than I do because he can actually quote the verse. But it's, you can't take, more than you need while others still are in actual need of it. If you have enough water to sustain yourself, how dare you take more? And if, right down at below the hill, people are struggling to even get a sip of fresh water. He said the rabbi got very angry and kicked him out.
Yeah.
But that makes me very proud to know him, that he stuck his ground and made a declaration of a moral declaration that stands after he had witnessed something that, pulls at your heartstrings.
Sure. Raymond McGovern is a very, very fine individual. When I was a boy, Israel had not been around that long when I was growing up, and I had an uncle that I spent lots of time with, and he had me read the book Exodus, which was one of the foundational books of the Jewish state, and he had me read the Diary of Anne Frank, and he was very, very pro-Israel, and all I knew is what he taught me. But I do recall right around that time, there was some article in the newspaper, Miami Herald, and there was a picture of a barbed wire fence, and there were children, Palestinian children, looking, holding onto the barbed wire, looking out. And I remember thinking, even as a 10-year-old child, okay, I understand all of this about, people coming from Europe and wanting to have a new place to live. But what about the people who lived there to begin with? Where do these children go once you tell them, get out of your land? We're coming from Europe, and we've decided to live here. And honestly, as a 10-year-old, that was my reaction when I saw this picture, and I think it's very much my reaction today. Is there are no Jewish people in the Gaza Strip? Zero. Everyone in there, 2 to 3 million people, They are either Muslim Arabs or the sprinkling of Christians, about 1% Christians, 99% Muslim, 0% Jewish. And yet we have these groups, like you have the Heritage Minister of Israel, and he told a radio station, as reported by the Times of Israel, he said the government is racing for Gaza to be wiped out. Gaza will be cleared for Jewish settlement. And he says all Gaza will be Jewish. And he says, and he's speaking to a conference, and the head of the settler movement, which is truly an evil group. I mean, if you dislike the Nazis, which most everybody does, then you really should dislike the Jewish settler movement in Israel. And here the head of this settler movement, woman Daniela Weiss, says, quote, "In Gaza there will never be an Arab, and there will never be an Arab international or American government." She's saying it's going to be Jewish, and that will be it. And so we are seeing the reaction from Jewish Voice for Peace, which gave us the title for our podcast today. They were the ones who first used this title, Israel's Final Solution for Palestinians. And again, as you mentioned before, there is a strong element of the Jewish community that is revolted by what Netanyahu is doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good sign. So there is some hope that enough pressure will come about as the children begin dropping and falling dead in greater and greater numbers, that somehow something will strike the hearts of the American people and people around the world, and maybe we can rise up and say never again. Never again doesn't just apply to European Jews. Never again should apply to people of the world.
Yes, I agree. And I know last time we spoke on this, it was also heavy. And it was pertinent to me to remind everybody that ultimately the whirlwind of, this evil will subside and truth will win. And it's good to be speaking out on this issue and taking a stance against this. So I thank you, Senator, for all you do and speaking out for, people who don't have a voice and that against these evils. It's a pleasure to know you and work with you, and hope everyone can catch us next week to focus on the news.
Thank you very much, Morgan.